Mental MMA.
Welcome to Mental MMA. We're here for our first episode of Mental with MJ. That's the name of this show. This is where we actually go mental and talk about crazy stuff that's controversial, debates, and hot topics in MMA. And we're going to start it out with the latest thing that's happened. There's been a lot of things that's happened lately, but we'll go ahead and start real quick. We're going to cover the judging from UFC 247. We're going to talk about weight classes. And we're going to talk about weight cutting. How far should they go for weight cutting? We're also going to talk about supplementation, the judging situation, and mixed martial arts. And, this has been a problem for a long time. You have judges that are pretty controversial every time, like, everybody knows Adelaide Bird. But we have judges that do boxing and then they come over and just do MMA, kind of almost like they're filling in or something. They don't really have a good understanding like an MMA, a dedicated MMA judge would have, or a former fighter. I agree with a lot of the people that are on the inside saying judges, they should at least have one or two judges that are former fighters. That's a good in that way. It's also kind of bad because fighters also have a connection to certain fighters in training camps. For instance, if I was a former fighter and I trained at, we'll go with Alliance MMA in San Diego. Let's say I was training at Alliance and that's where I had done my career at. And then there's an up-and-comer that comes out of that gym. I would probably, not me, but if I were that judge, there's a possibility that I would be tempted to score for a fellow fighter that I'm friends with or someone that is from my original camp or have some sort of connection or fraternity with. So it's kind of a good thing as far as having a fighter judge, but it's also a bad thing because there are also personal feelings involved. And everybody's human, and fighters especially are very loyal to their camps. A lot of fighters are more loyal to their camps than they are to country. And it's crazy how they feel this way, but they do, and MMA fans know this. So that's kind of something that would deserve a lot of looking at before they actually went through with trying to do something like that. Another thing is they're talking about having judges do something called open scoring. If you think about it, how many sports make the competitor wait, and make the audience wait until the fight is already over to find out who's even ahead, who's winning, who's losing, where people stand? No other sport does that. Boxing, but these are combat sports. And maybe they should do that, and it lets people kind of know where they stand, but there's also a bad thing to that because what happens if you're in an audience and there's 20,000 people in an arena? You see on the big Titantron, you see that some judge just scored a round that was ludicrous. The crowd's going to go crazy. They're going to be booing and yelling, maybe throwing things around, and it's chaos. And the first round just got finished, and there's 4 more rounds to go, and then the fighters can't concentrate. The TV people can't concentrate. The cameramen who are running the camera don't know if there's going to be a bottle coming over their head. The commentators can't focus on the fight and call things the way we want to hear them. It's very important. Some of these things are really important, and those things would probably change. Also, what happens if a judge sees what another judge scored for a round and they either don't agree with that judge or they may feel like they did an inadequate judging job of that last round. So to play catch up, then they score the next round with some sort of compensation to match what the other judges are doing or to appease the crowd. I think it would be cool to be able to keep up with the scores as they happen. I mean, if we could just somehow know. But when they're displayed like that, then you're asking for trouble. So I can understand why this sport does not have open scoring where the audience, the fighters, people at home, everyone can see the scoring as it happens. We get to look at the scorecards after every round. So I can understand both sides of that, but I would have to go with leaving it as it is as far as that goes. Joe Rogan and Dominic Cruz claim that they saw one of the judges looking down at the ground instead of at the fight. Well, lo and behold, at the end of the fight, it was controversial, and that judge had scored odd. But what happened is what people don't know, and I didn't know until the day before yesterday, the Texas Athletic Commission actually responded to that claim, and they said that sometimes they put monitors down underneath the cage, so when a fight gets into an odd position in the cage where a judge can't see what's going on, like around on the other side, then they look at the monitors to see what's going on. If that's true, then I can understand them, and they weren't really looking at the ground. They were looking at the monitor that may have been on the ground. And I'm not sure that Joe Rogan and Dominic Cruz knew about this at the time. I'm still not sure if that's what they were doing. I'm just saying that that's how the Athletic Commission responded to that. So it may or may not be true. We don't know. But if he was looking at the ground and there was no monitor, that's horrible. It's incompetent, and they should be suspended from judging MMA fights. You got people's health that is on the line, people's money. They spend a lot of money. Some of these guys, especially on the undercards, they may walk in and only make $8,000 to show up, and their fight camp costs them $6,000. Then they got to pay taxes. So these are life-changing things. Or if they lost a fight that they should have won, that means they could have gotten a better fight next time, fought a better opponent, and their pay may have gone up later on because after their contract changes, things like that. Or their sponsorships. They could have gotten a sponsorship out of that, from their hometown. Even nothing crazy, but when they go back to hometown, some ma and pa restaurant wants to sponsor them because they're a hometown winner. A lot of things matter. And it can also change, the mental side of it, the psyche of a fighter. Knowing that they have a loss on their record. It's just so many things are on the line with judging, and they need to be disciplined. I do believe that that's 100%. Judges need to be disciplined for what they do. I don't think they need to be fined, all that good stuff, or fired and things. But they do need to go through some sort of extra training course on why they scored it that way, and with someone who is maybe someone at the top of the food chain with judging, someone who's known for being this elite judge, and they have a course with these judges who screw up, and they show them, and they look at the fight together, and they say, this is why you should have judged it this way instead of the way that you did. And they go, oh, okay, that was the criteria. Weight cutting. The topic that always comes up is, why are these guys killing themselves? Why are these girls killing themselves? Remember, what's her name? Aspen Ladd. Remember Aspen Ladd about 6 months ago? What she looked like? She was literally trembling and shaking, and she couldn't even, I thought she was going to die. I didn't know she was going to make it to the cage. And they actually, California Athletic Commission actually suspended her until she did some sort of proof that she could properly, come in at a weight that wasn't going to cause an extreme weight cut. And there have been other fighters that have been disciplined for the same thing. Now, we have a lot of fighters. I got a list here in front of me because these are the only guys I could think of from personally. I didn't research anything, but this is off the top of my head. But these are the guys who have had horrible weight cuts, bad problems. They'd weight cut trying to get down to the next division below them so they could have an advantage. So that way, when they weigh in on Friday morning, they have a whole 36 hours until the very next night that they actually step into the cage, which means they can dehydrate their bodies before they weigh in, and then they immediately rehydrate their bodies to get that weight back. So they come in the cage the same weight that they did before they started cutting. What was the point in that? I know what the point is. It's still taller guys with the longer reaches, guys who are naturally bigger that have the ability to cut more weight and rehydrate to more weight, so they have an advantage over another guy. That's nitpicking, to me, that's just they're trying to get too close with the advantages, trying to nitpick the advantages. What about the disadvantage? The more weight you cut and the more you try to come in bigger, you dehydrated your brain. Your brain is made of it functions off of carbohydrates and water. And when you drain your body, you're draining your organs. Your liver is like a raisin. Your brain is like a raisin. Then you have to hydrate it back like a sponge. And when your brain is dehydrated like that, then it has more room to rattle around in there. What does that mean? An easy knockout. That means guys are going to get knocked out a lot easier. A concussion is when your brain literally smacks up against the wall of your skull. That's what a concussion is. And when people get knocked out like that, it's your chin isn't as good when you weight cut heavily like that. The next thing is that it's just not healthy for your body to do. And I think it's, in a way, I'm not an MMA fighter, but to me as a fan, like, they're afraid to fight in their own natural weight class. What if every fighter fought in their natural weight class, or at least had some sort of, where they could only lose a maximum of, let's say, I think they're allowed to lose up to 15 pounds, 15% of their body weight right now before they start getting in trouble for it. I think they should go no more than 5 to 8% of their body weight. And that's the most that they should be allowed to lose 2 weeks out from fighting. They should check their hydration 2 weeks out from weight cut, or from the event, or from weigh-ins, and they should not let them lose more than 5 to 8%. These are the guys and girls who have had bad weight cuts or were in divisions that they shouldn't have been in, and they belonged in a higher division. They stepped up and actually were successful in the bigger division, which is works for my case here and a lot of other people's case. Michael Chiesa, big, huge dude, 6'1", 6'2". He cut weight to 155 to the lightweight division most of his career, almost all of his career that I know of until just lately. He said no more. He says he's going to welterweight. He's going to welterweight. He looks great. He's even a big welterweight. The guy was fighting at lightweight at 155. He goes to welterweight at 170, and he's still one of the biggest guys in the division. That's where he should have been all along. He knows it. He's moved up. Anthony Pettis tried his luck down at 145 once or twice, I think. Not good. He's back where he belongs. Not only did he go back up to lightweight, he actually went to welterweight to fight Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Stephen Thompson he's one of the best on the planet at this, and Anthony knocked him out. I'm not saying he would knock him out every time, and he wouldn't beat Stephen every time. Actually, I think Stephen Wonderboy Thompson was winning that fight until that knockout happened, and I think everyone agrees with that. But my point is that Anthony Pettis fought at a higher weight class than the one he's fought in his entire career, which is welterweight, and he's not even tall for the weight class. He's only 5'10", if that. So he did well with that. Henry Cejudo, 125, and I don't even know if he'll ever make 125 again. But anyway, he went up. Amanda Nunes, she was at 135 her whole life. She went and fought Cyborg at 145, took her belt from her, murdered Cyborg in like 50 seconds or something like that. At 145, she stepped up. Conor McGregor, same thing. He's always fought at 145. He stepped up to 155, of course, and then now he's at 170. His third time fighting at 170. He fought Nate Diaz twice at 170. He just fought Donald Cerrone at 170. And so he's talking like he wants to stay there, at least, for a while, or keep taking fights there while he might bounce back and forth. Darren Till, huge welterweight. Nobody knows how he was making welterweight. He went up to middleweight. He beat Kelvin Gastelum, one of the top contenders in the division. I can go on and on. Dustin Poirier, Kelvin Gastelum, Jorge Masvidal fought at lightweight. Now he's going crazy at welterweight, just murdering people. Frankie Edgar, he was undersized all of his career. He was a lightweight champion. He belonged in bantamweight, but they just didn't have it at the time. Colby Covington. Now he's always been at welterweight, and he's one of the smaller welterweights. He probably cuts maybe 10 pounds, if that. I mean, he walks around maybe 178, 180, and he cuts probably the least amount of weight of anyone I can think of in any non-heavyweight weight division. Colby Covington comes in. He fights closest to his natural weight class of anybody. Colby could not fight at middleweight. He'd have to gain weight to fight at middleweight, and he barely cuts anything to make welterweight. So I think big props to Colby Covington for that. He fights the big guys. He's a stud for that. Next we have guys who are not going up, who are staying in their division, who are afraid to go up, and if they're not afraid to go up, then they just don't want to take the chance. I've got to say something though. For my first guy, Max Holloway, Max did take a chance. He tried to go up to 155. He got beat by Dustin Poirier, and Dustin beat him before at 145 back in the day. So I think Dustin just has his number. I think Max Holloway could still beat a lot of guys at 155, but I just don't think he'd take the belt. Props to Max for giving it a try, but Max still kills himself to make 145. He's had some bad cuts too. Khabib Nurmagomedov. The guy needs to go to 170. I'm going to talk about this in a second. I know what you guys are thinking. You're thinking 165, 165, 160. I'll be talking about that in a second. Kevin Lee refuses to go up. He kills himself. James Vick, same thing. I think he might have decided to go up recently, though. Yoel Romero, he misses weight about every other time he fights. He needs to go light heavyweight, but he knows he's not tall enough. Jessica I is trying to go down to 125, and she belongs at 135. She came in her last fight before this one. Her very last fight after she got knocked out from Valentina. She tried to come in at 125. She weighed in closer to bantamweight than she did flyweight, which means she wasn't even close to her own division that she was fighting in that day. Joanna Champion, man. She has weight cuts, but she makes the weight every time. Props to her for that. But she looks like she's dead. She looks like a corpse when she's weighing in. Joanna needs to go to 125. When she fought Valentina at 125, that was where she looked her best, but she's just not good enough to beat Valentina. And I think Joanna thinks, okay, well, as long as Valentina's at 125, I'm going to keep killing myself to make 115. And that's really it right there, guys. And so going back to the 165, we do not need a 165-pound weight class, and I'll tell you why. One is because these guys that are stuck in the middle, none of these guys walk around at 165. All these guys that went this 165-pound weight class, none of these guys are walking around at 165. None of these guys have to gain weight to make 170. They're all cutters, every one of them. There's not a single guy. If you opened up a 165-pound division, There's not one fighter in that division that would walk in off the street and make 165. They would have to cut weight, the same thing as they would to cut down to 155 or 170 either way. The difference is, though, is that you have guys bouncing around more than ever, back and forth. You have no clear picture of the contenders or the rankings in any division now. You got guys that are going back and forth and fighting in two divisions at the same time all the time. Like, where's their ranking at? Where's the clarity? There's none. Imagine guys that are bouncing around 15 pounds weight differences up and down all the time. One month here, 3 months later they're here, 3 months later they're back here again, and you just keep bouncing around. If you get a 165, you're going to tell me that 165 pound division isn't going to have 80% of the 165 pound roster fighting at 170 also, and fighting at 155 also. They're going to be doing it. So the 165 pound, really all that is, it's just like a stopover for guys to come and play around in. It's not going to be a serious division. And if it is a serious division, guys are just going to go back and forth, and they'll lose at 170 or lose at 155, and they'll say, oh, that doesn't count on my rankings, or that doesn't count against my record because that wasn't in my official weight class. But you got guys bouncing around from weight class to weight class as it is right now, more than ever before. And those are 15 pound differences. They're going 15 pounds, sometimes 20 pound differences going back and forth. You think they're not going to do that when there's only a 5 or 7.5 or a 10 pound difference? Of course they're going to do it. They're going to do it more than ever. And there will be no clarity in any division. It's the stupidest thing ever. We cannot let a 165 pound weight class come in. Just because you got 2 or 3 guys that have a hard time making weight. Okay, fight at 170 where you belong. The next thing is supplementation. I saw an interview this week that Diego Sanchez did with Ariel Helwani. He was talking about the same thing I'm talking about, weight classes, weight cutting, where he says it's stupid. He used to do it. Everybody knows Diego did it back in the day, but he's against it now, and he's also against certain supplementation, Eat food. You don't need all these different chemicals in your body. These guys are getting suspended by USADA because they're taking tainted supplements, and some of these guys' claims of tainted supplements are actually legit. And USADA will say that. Like Diego's was legit. He actually sent them his supplement in the mail. They tested it and they said, yes, your supplement was tainted by the company, and we know you're innocent. We know you're free and clear, so it's over. But what about for the guys who can't prove it, or the guys who might have taken it and it's gone? They can't prove it. Or it just could be anything. These supplements, some of these things don't need to be taken. Some of the things, everybody wants an edge. But train hard, train smart, eat good, eat smart, and as a human, humans weren't meant to be, jacked up on steroids. That's why the steroids. Steroids is synthetic testosterone, basically, or things that raise your nitrogen retention in your muscles. And as soon as you get off of it, you're back to normal anyway. So there's no point even doing it. But there's a lot of supplements out there that Diego's talking about, and I'm with him on this. But anyway, guys, thank you very much for tuning in, and I'll see you very soon here in a couple of days with another upload.
Mental MMA.